Bering Sea, west of Alaska and east of Siberia. Beneath its waters, the flat contours of the Bering Shelf drop off thousands of feet into the frigid Aleutian Basin. It's the topography that creates the richest fishing grounds in the world. To the south, on the Aleutian Islands, you'll find Dutch Harbor. It's America's #1 fishing port. The pride of the Dutch Harbor fleet is Alaska Ocean. Half fishing boat, half floating factory. It processes and flash freezes Alaska pollock as fast as they're caught. Alaska Ocean's crew of 130 trust their livelihoods and their lives to Captain Scott Simons.
I've been on board the Alaska Ocean for 17 years. I've been a fisherman my whole adult life. I actually started when I was in high school, going salmon fishing in the summertime. I've been the captain on board now since 1998. Prior to that, I was a mate, and I was the first deck boss on the boat.
Scott's responsibilities?
First and foremost is operating the vessel safely. Secondarily is finding fish. You know, if we don't find fish, then there's no job. There's no work. The company doesn't exist. We have to find fish.
At 3:30 a.m. on August 10th, the crew is ready to cast off and head for the fishing grounds on the last trip of the grueling 4-month summer season.
Take the stern line off, Franz.
The skipper can't afford to wait for first light. He'll need every minute at sea to catch the ship's quota.
Hey, Eric, you need to stay down forward there for the anchor, please. Storm Petrel, Alaska Ocean. We're outbound here, port to port. So when we get outside here and clear əʻlæskə Head, which is the landmass off to our port side here, we'll just turn northwest and head up toward the general area where we're going to start fishing.
Scott plots his course for the edge of the U.S. economic zone, 500 miles north in the Bering Sea, notorious for the most violent weather and ocean conditions on the planet. When frigid Arctic winds collide with warm air pushed northward by the jet stream, bad weather happens. Though deep chasms rim the Bering Sea off the continental shelf, for the most part, it's a relatively shallow basin. This allows winds to whip up seas of confused waves that can batter a ship from every direction. Conditions on the Bering Sea can change on a whim, producing hurricane-force winds and 5-story waves, capable of swamping even large ships. That was the case with the Anyo Maru, a 190-foot Japanese factory trawler that went down off Attu Island amid towering waves in 1999, taking 12 lives with her.
Even on a boat this size, you know, we could take water up the stern, and that's what sinks a lot of these boats is the down flooding. They'll have a hatch open, the doorway open, and water comes up the stern and down floods the boat, and it doesn't take long at all.
Anybody that's been in the business long enough, you lose quite a few of your friends.
As Alaska Ocean steams towards her fishing grounds, her crew can face the challenges of the Bering Sea, knowing that they're aboard one of the strongest, safest fishing vessels in the world. She's longer than a football field and 6 stories tall. A 6,250 horsepower engine drives the ship through mountainous waves. Her 13.5-foot diameter propeller powers the boat at speeds up to 14 knots, and her hull is armed with thick steel reinforcements to withstand even the worst poundings of Arctic storms. 2 rescue boats flank the trawl deck, where nets are hauled and stowed. And overlooking everything is the wheelhouse, the ship's nerve center, where all operations are supervised. This voyage, Alaska Ocean must catch over 12 million pounds of Alaska pollock to fulfill its quota of 22,000 tons for the season. To find the fish, Scott needs the very latest sonar and tracking equipment available as he begins scouting pollock.
I have a couple of different chart plotters that are hooked up to GPS, global positioning satellites, and that gives us our exact position. And these chart plotters show the bathymetric lines of the ocean floor, so we see the depth contours. It's kind of like a topographical map. This area we're next to here now is called Zemchug Canyon, and we're going to go on the north side of Zemchug.
Zemchug Canyon, which drops off precipitously from 600 to 8,500 feet, is the largest underwater canyon in the world, bigger even than its dryland counterpart, the Grand Canyon.
This area here is relatively unstable for fishing because the fish are constantly moving, going up shallower to feed or maybe out deeper off the edge to feed. I don't particularly care to fish there in that area very often. These red crosses and things are snags or bad bottom. They're possibly shipwrecks. There's thousands of them up here in the Bering Sea. This area in particular here, we call this the razor blades. This whole area is just snags, wrecks. You know, the Bering Sea is a pretty unforgiving place.
Since 1741, when Russian fur traders first came to the Bering Sea seeking otter pelts, treacherous Alaskan waters have claimed over 2,500 ships. 19th century whalers, Japanese World War II subs, and crab boats that went down this year lay on the bottom just waiting to snag Alaska Ocean's nets.
It's kind of dangerous to tow right here. If it was good fish indication there, then I'd probably consider making a tow and doing that.
By fish indication, Scott is referring to the signals received on his down sounder that allow him to see beneath his ship. A sonar device mounted on the ship's hull sends out an acoustic signal. It strikes the seabed and gets reflected back and is received. The fish reflect the sonar too. The air in their swim bladder slows the acoustic signal, making them visible to the echo sounder.
These two are echo sounders, and there is a little bit of fish down there right now. The more they come together, the denser it is, the darker the color is. And usually they're very dense when they're schooled together like that, and that's obviously what we're looking for.
Scott notices a change on his echo sounder.
That's a good sign. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. It's hit a pretty good little spot here, but I don't think I can drive by this.
Catching his crew off guard, Scott makes an unexpected call.
Hey, Dave, you want to fire him up, please, and hook up a net?
The half a mile of lines, net, and gear set out behind the boat costs over $500,000. Losing it is something Scott doesn't even want to think about.
No, we're not superstitious, but we'll knock on wood after we talk about stuff like that. We try not to talk about it.
Out on the trawl deck, the hands get ready to set the net.
The wire back there he's holding on to, that's the out haul. This is the first thing you will step when setting the net. That'll pull the net down the stern ramp, and you'll yank that hook out. And then I let out the net as the current pulls it out.
Now I'll set the doors up to about 5 fathoms, and off she goes.
The ship trawls at 3 knots, roughly 3.5 miles per hour. The current pulls the net behind the boat, spreading it out in the shape of a giant cone. Water passing through the trawl doors opens the net wide, while the weights pull the mouth of the net down. The third wire, an electronic cable, holds up the top of the net. It carries signals from the transducer, a sonar transmitter the crew calls the suitcase. The transducer emits an acoustic pulse that reflects off the mouth of the net, capturing an image of both the shape of the net and the fish entering it. The net's mesh narrows as it tapers toward the cod end, the bag where fish collect. Up on the bridge, Scott keeps a close eye on signals from the transducer, watching for fish.
Looks like we might have a little tangle. Right now, I'm not sure what's going on. There's something's not quite right, but this should not be wavy. It should be pretty straight. And I can see the suitcase, it has a sensor in it for pitch and roll, so you can see how it's tilted. And I'm watching it, and the case is going back and forth, so something's tangled up, making the top not fly quite straight.
Scott's got to make a tough call. Haul in the net and reset the transponder, losing precious time and possibly his fish, or continue fishing blind, risking that his net never opened. It It's day 2 aboard Alaska Ocean's final trip of the season. The first net is set, but there's no video signal from the transponder.
This picture just keeps going back and forth like this, so it makes it very difficult to see fish going in the net. It's obviously a less than ideal situation.
With the ship's operating costs running roughly $80,000 a day, Scott can't afford to waste time.
In a situation like this, without being able to see the net opening very well, we're relying on our catch indicators, which are these 3 here, to let us know how much fish is in the net when it gets full to a certain point.
Scott can only wait and hope that the fish are entering his net. The atmosphere in the wheelhouse gets tense.
Murphy's Law, in effect.
After 15 minutes, Scott gets the signal he'd hoped for.
See, we just got our first catch indicator. It turned from yellow to red. That should be about 30 tons of fish. It means the net's fishing, so that's a good sign. Stuff's going in okay. So pretty happy to see that.
Wow, this is Jim.
Yeah, good morning, Jimmy. Hey, it's going pretty good here, so I'll probably be hauling back in the next half hour.
Okay, now we're getting ready to haul back. Now we just do everything in reverse. Everything starts coming back up again. The doors are coming up behind the boat. The next thing up is the weight chains. Then we disconnect the transducer, get it out of the way. Everything's coming up, waiting for the cod end to come up.
Right now, our deck boss, our bosun, Brent, is standing back aft, watching the net come up, looking for any damage. I think maybe I hit a crab pot or something that was on the bottom. You know, caught it and tore it.
Saw something snap. There it is there.
Yeah, there's our culprit right there.
The snagged crab pot may have twisted the net, causing the trouble with the transponder.
You want to do one side, I'll do the other.
Okay, that'll work for me.
Okay.
Go ahead and wind her.
The guys on the bridge run the handles for all the hooks out here to bring the cod end up. That'll pull the bag all the way up on the deck.
I hope that holds. Yeah! That's what I'm talking about! Big one. Is it? Good.
When the bag is set right over the fish bin, Brent will pop the zipper and all the fish will start coming out, going into the bin. That was our first haul back of this trip. Went pretty good.
Scott's decision to fish Zemshug Canyon came at a price, but luckily the crew can repair the net damage and get ready for the next haul. Still 50 tons of pollock on deck is a good start for the trip. Alaska pollock, aka walleye pollock, for their large protruding eyes. They're a member of the cod family and thrive in the ocean bottoms of the North Pacific. Copepods, tiny shrimp-like creatures, make up most of their diet, and though pollock can live up to 15 years, few do. The big pollock eat the little pollock, and seals and other large fish enjoy a meal of fresh pollock too. Fewer than 2% of hatchlings make it to their 4th year, but Alaska pollock are still one of the most populous fish on the planet. To sustain the fishery, government scientists only allow 15% of Alaska pollock to be harvested annually.
That's almost 3 billion pounds of round weight fish. That's a lot of fish. So you're looking at 1 billion pounds plus of finished product.
What becomes of the catch? Ever eaten frozen fish sticks or a McDonald's filet-o-fish sandwich? Pollock.
If you walk into a McDonald's, there's a very good chance that the filet of fish came from this vessel.
Pollock's also made into a fish paste called surimi that's used in over 1,500 fish products in Japan alone. To catch their fair share of one of the most consumed fish in the world, Alaska Ocean's crew works around the clock, 7 days a week. Life aboard America's largest fishing boat takes some adjustments.
It's very hard to be out here. I tell the new people, the mental part out here is the toughest. The physical you can get used to, but The mental of getting used to all the hours, being away from home, the constant just work.
Time out here isn't cyclical. There aren't any TGIFs. The time out here is linear. It's just one gray line.
Despite the drudgery of their jobs, the crew of Alaska Ocean is proud of their ship.
I consider myself a fisherman, even though I'm not up there actually hauling the nets in. And I think everybody on here considers themselves a fisherman, from the guy washing the dishes to the guy down cleaning up the bilges, all the processors, and I think it should be that way.
To help maintain crew morale, the ship's hotel department provides laundry, cleaning services, and non-stop meals.
We work 24 hours a day, and there's 4 meals a day. There's a lunch, dinner, midnight meal, and then breakfast.
I don't eat like this at home.
We stay away from the pollock.
No pollock. Try to stay away from the pollock.
I really don't eat much fish at all anymore after being here 12 years.
Crews are well paid on Alaska Ocean. A deckhand right out of high school can make over $1,000 a week.
I've been on board this boat since I graduated high school last year, so skipped my graduation to come up here. Well, everything's so big. I mean, it's kind of a whole new world, you know. It's just a little frightening at first.
4 days into the voyage, things take a turn for the worse. A storm moves in. 30-mile-an-hour winds and heavy seas.
On a day like today, it's hard to see stuff on the echo sounder. When you're looking for a little tiny thin layer of fish sign on a machine when you're going up and down, it's pretty tough for it to pick it up. So this is probably the worst day of the summer.
Yeah, a little more nautical today. The barometer dropped quite a bit. It's not too bad.
Not compared to the storms Alaska Ocean encounters during its winter season. Winds get up to 60 knots. Seas crest at over 30 feet, and storms can last for days. When the deck beneath you is rolling, a hard job gets even harder.
When you get some nasty weather, I mean, that's where you have a lot of injuries, 100-ton bags, cables breaking.
The boat's rocking, these blocks come flying out at you. I've had a whole top of a freezer come out. It's also harder because you're trying to keep your balance and do this, so it'll make you more tired during the day.
A lot of times you'll be just rocking your body back and forth just to keep yourself moving, and these pans, they'll shift real hard, and you'll be cutting something, you'll hear some loud noises, and you just want to be able to catch something.
Despite the weather, Alaska Ocean's deck crew continues to haul in 100 to 150-ton nets of pollock, as often as 5 times a day.
Better too much and not enough, though, I guess.
Working the trawl deck has its hazards, but they pale when compared to the conditions in the factory, where one false move can cost you a finger, or far worse. One man knows exactly how dangerous the factory can be. 6 days into Alaska Ocean's quest to fill its quota, the weather turns mild. Alaska Ocean has traveled 450 miles northwest of Dutch Harbor. The smooth sea bottom here, east of Prevenance Canyon, is an area that Captain Scott Simons knows is historically rich with fish. Records from past seasons help Scott decide where to set his nets.
We put all this information into a database, but, you know, Scott, he knows what's going on.
Whether it's based on information or instinct, Scott's decision to fish here is good. Around the clock, the ship's pulling in large hauls. But Scott can only catch as much pollock as the factory below decks can process. Stretching nearly the length of the ship, the processing plant converts raw pollock into packaged frozen product at the rate of 750 fish per minute. By processing aboard ship, Alaska Ocean is better able to hit its quota by spending more time with its nets in the water and less time ferrying its catch back to shoreside factories. The pollock enter the plant through one of 3 fish bins that each hold 100 tons, the equivalent weight of an adult blue whale. It'll only take the factory 5 hours to empty the bin, with the crew working killer 15-hour shifts. Of the 130-man crew, 100 work in the factory. The key is automation, but the machinery that makes the factory efficient also makes it dangerous.
The factory is a very dangerous place to work. Because everything's moving. Just in the wet end alone, we have 112 conveyors that you could easily step in. We have knives that are razor sharp everywhere. There's machines everywhere. Everywhere you look, there's something spinning.
Factory manager Kenichi Yoshida knows how hazardous the processing plant can be. His left forearm was badly mangled aboard a Japanese factory ship and was amputated at sea without anesthetic. Yoshida supervises Alaska Ocean's factory to keep it a safe workplace, starting with the weighing and sorting area, where observer Ted Jackson of the National Marine Fisheries Service has his hands full.
My job aboard the ship as an observer is to basically collect data on the catch. Every haul that we receive, I randomly select approximately 20 pollock. For each fish, I determine the sex and record its length in centimeters. I transmit these figures to management, which get an overview of what's being caught and how much it weighs. I collect everything that's not pollock, which is referred to as bycatch. I identify it to species, I count it, weigh it, and record it all. Anything other than pollock and cod is discarded. Simply they just can't use it.
The bycatch can range widely, from Alaskan skate to a 12-foot sleeper shark, one of the largest fish the ship has ever landed. But big fish aren't the only unusual items to turn up in Alaska Ocean's nets.
You never know what you're going to get. I mean, there is a lot of garbage down there, to make a long story short.
We pulled up a small aluminum boat one time. That was pretty crazy. It was probably, I don't know, 10, 12 feet long.
The worst thing to possibly come up in that net, though, is a whale carcass. You'll never smell anything worse in your life.
Nothing much more unusual than a big-mouthed sculpin finds its way below decks. Production supervisor Travis Fitz troubleshoots problems that arise in the cramped factory.
I'm 6'3", and most people, when they're walking through the factory, look down so they don't trip over anything. I'm looking up to make sure I'm not hitting my head on it. I hit my head every day on a day-to-day basis.
To move through the factory, the pollock are automatically sorted by size, with smaller fish falling through widening gaps between rollers. One of the hardest jobs in the processing plant is the drivers.
They're falling onto this conveyor in front of him. He's driving the fish into the machine, making sure all the fish are facing the same way so that we don't have any miscuts.
I personally could not drive. I've tried it. I can't do it. I can make it maybe 15 minutes and my back is just killing me. It takes a long time to become a good driver, to get over the pain of just standing there for 15 hours feeding fish.
The driver aligns the fish for the machine that will head and gut them. It can cut the heads off 150 pollock per minute. A gut extractor then pushes the innards from the fish before sending them to the fillet machine. First, 2 razor-sharp blades make a belly cut down the center of the fish. 2 more cut the flesh from the rib cage before another pair removes the ribs. A 4th set of blades cuts out the backbone, and a final pair slices off the dorsal fin and creates 2 individual fillets. To keep pace with the pollock being hauled in on deck, 5 filleting machines work at once, processing 45,000 fish per hour.
This is the candling table. There's light shining up through the conveyor belt so they can see through the fillet any defects, like parasites, bone, skin.
Fillets are weighed, then packed in uniform trays for freezing. Smaller fillets will be minced and used to produce surimi.
So this is called surimi land. This is where we make all our surimi.
Surimi is just the fish meat that's been washed and bleached in cold fresh water. It's been refined to make sure that there's no skin left on it, no bone left in it. All that's left is just a paste, that's it.
So after it's gone through the screw press, it basically has the same consistency as Play-Doh.
The bland taste of surimi allows it to be flavored to mimic other more expensive seafood products.
Most people never think they've eaten surimi, but if you've ever had artificial crab, that's surimi.
Surimi may be a staple food in Japan, but the real pollock delicacy is roe. Fish guts go to a sorting line where roe, the eggs of the fish, are separated. Roe is the most valuable part of pollock, selling in Japan for $60 a pound. Earnings from fillet and surimi just cover the cost of operations. Remarkably, it's pollock roe sold at auction in Seattle that earns the ship's profits for an entire year. Little of the pollock goes to waste on Alaska Ocean. The discarded guts and heads are sent one deck below to the fish meal plant, where the overpowering stench of cooked fish guts fills the air.
We're here in the fish meal plant. Now down here, you can see this is where all the fish heads and fish guts go. Eventually all this right here gets processed into what we call fish meal. It also produces fish oil. This is what the finished product looks like. Real fine. Now this is what they use for fertilizer, for fish food also.
It's all about efficiency. That's the name of the game on this boat. You can take a fish swimming in the ocean in less than 12 hours, turn it into food for people and feed for animals. There's virtually no waste.
The 12,000 gallons of fish oil that's produced each day from heads and guts is combined with bunker oil to fire the boiler that provides heat for the fish meal dryer. Steam from that same boiler goes to the fresh water maker that distills thousands of gallons of salt water required to manufacture surimi. To keep the factory running takes a team of specialized engineers.
Only 500 pieces of equipment down there, counting motors, gearboxes, pumps. This is a lot of equipment to keep maintained and running.
The factory's saltwater environment may be rugged, but so are the men and women who crew the ship. The lives of Alaska Ocean's fishermen are filled with risk.
Of course, it's always in the back of your mind. You think about it, it happens out here. But we try to keep this a very, very safe vessel. We're constantly on safety issues. So we do the drills, the emergency musters, so we do the fire drills. You know, we do the man overboard drills.
Man overboard, port side. Man overboard, port side. This is a drill. This is a drill.
Jaime Montalongo, who supervises the drill, knows its importance firsthand.
The skiff flipped, so I went in the water and tried hopping back on and trying to get on, and I couldn't do it.
The survival time for a man in sub-32-degree water is 15 minutes.
The waves kept on hitting me, bouncing me back off. So after about 7 minutes in the water, the captain set the mate down out of the water and pulled me back in the skiff.
Safety aboard ship also has a practical side.
If people are getting hurt, you're gonna have trouble making money. If you have to take somebody in, you know, it's a 2.5-day trip out here and 2.5-day trip back in. You know, burning 10,000 gallons of fuel a day, plus everybody else that you're paying, so it pays to be safe.
Time is truly money aboard a factory trawler, where profit is measured in how quickly a quota is met. But 15 days into Alaska Ocean's final trip of the season, the factory pace is slowed to a crawl. No fish. Up on the bridge, Captain Scott Simons feels the pressure. He scans his down sounder for any positive signs.
So they're around us. It's just a matter of if you see something really solid on the sonar, you would turn for it. But otherwise, you go crazy trying to chase each individual little bump. You just can't do it. And, you know, there's so many square miles of water, and this net is relatively small in the big picture.
If Scott doesn't find fish soon, the last trip of the season may be a long and costly one for Alaska Ocean. In its search to find fish to fill its season's quota, Alaska Ocean travels further and further from port. It's now at the northernmost point of its voyage, 525 miles from Dutch Harbor. and 47 miles from the edge of Russian territory. Because the bottom of the Bering Sea here is relatively flat and shallow, ranging in depths from 300 to 500 feet, it's ideal for trawling. Alaska Ocean still needs over 1,000 tons of pollock to send the crew home for the season. But there's one problem. Alaska Ocean's nets are idle. No fish.
Well, by the time you think you figure it all out, they're gone. I may have to make a more aggressive turn and try to go a different direction through the area. But this right now, so far, the catch rate is much less than it was the last tow. I had better sign last tow, but...
Captain Scott makes two radical moves to change the ship's luck. First, he charts a course 60 miles due south where he feels fishing will improve. Second, he shaves his beard.
I shaved the beard off to change fishing luck. It's something I've done for years.
Everybody tries something different to change the luck of fishing.
If we go through a slow time or something like that, I'll shave off the facial hair to change the luck a little bit.
That's just his own little superstition that he believes in.
Everybody on the crew is getting pretty anxious to be finished. We're looking for fish, and we haven't found them yet, but we will.
As soon as Alaska Ocean arrives at the new fishing grounds, the deck crew sets the net. Scott scours the bridge's downsounder, looking for positive signs. Everyone on board hopes for the best. The net remains in the water for a long 3 hours.
Go ahead, Brent, anytime.
Finally, the skipper gives the order to haul in. The take, over 100 tons of pollock.
Shaving the beard off might have worked. I knock on wood. Be a little superstitious, but yeah, we've had a much better day today. Better fish size, better fishing. So we're pretty happy right now.
Beard was holding us back yesterday. So I think he did a good thing. Let's hopefully keep on going for a couple more days and we'll get out of here.
Scott's hit a massive school of pollock, and Alaska Ocean's nets are filling fast, spilling hundreds of tons of fish below deck. The factory shifts into high gear just to keep up, but workers still can't lose sight of the product's quality.
We want to catch any problems that we may have here before it gets into the freezer or to the buyer.
One of the biggest buyers of Alaska Ocean's fillets is McDonald's. It'll purchase thousands of tons of the ship's pollock this year.
McDonald's has a certain specification that we have to follow. They have a tolerance of bones. They have a tolerance of deep skinning levels. Also, one of the things we look at is the dimension. They have a tolerance for that as well that they'll reject us off of if we're over like 1/8 of an inch.
Battling bacteria is another part of Alaska Ocean's QC.
Every 7 days of production, we shut down the factory for approximately 8 to 9 hours to clean and sterilize the factory because of bacteria. We can't go beyond 7 days, otherwise our bacteria levels will be too high.
When working at top speed, the factory sends 5 tons of processed fish an hour down conveyor belts to be loaded into the plate freezer, where it's chilled to minus 13 degrees Fahrenheit by liquid Freon. In just 2 hours, the product is frozen into solid blocks of fish. To keep pace, the plate freezer crew works at a frenzied speed.
Pulling these pans out, I probably lift about over 100,000 pounds a day. It's pretty grueling, your back, your hands, all that gets pretty sore. So your body doesn't get any time to rest.
After 4 months of relentless work during 5 voyages, Alaska Ocean's crew is experiencing chronic fatigue.
There's one lady down there close to 60, and she's doing 15-hour days, 105 hours a week. That's 2 full-time jobs and a part-time. And we complain when we have to work 1 day extra on land.
Got burnt out right now, for sure. You know, I'm at the end of my rope, so to speak.
The season's quota is nearly within Scott's grasp. But even if his weary crew makes their catch, a still harder job awaits them. After 4 months at sea, Alaska Ocean needs less than 1,000 tons of pollock, or 8 good hauls to finish its season. The weary crew is running on fumes and caffeine.
I think everything would go to shambles with no coffee on this boat. The boat pretty much runs on coffee.
But even caffeine can't relieve the exhausting routine of the packaging department that boxes 120 tons of product each day.
After it's in the box, it goes through a printer. The printer puts what the product is, the date, the time, and how much it weighs. So if the customer has a problem with any product, they can trace it back to us. We can determine what haul it was from and figure out the problem.
If the pollock measures up to the ship's exacting standards, it goes into storage in the cargo hold.
This is where we hold all our product. We stack everything up to the ceiling. We can hold roughly 2,300 tons of product down here. And the temperature gets down to negative 30 degrees Celsius.
Each 12-hour shift does about 50 to 60 tons a day. Each pallet of filet and mince is about 1.25 tons, a little over 1 metric ton. So they're doing probably 60 to 70 pallets a day, 12-hour shift. It's not too bad for 3 guys. It is pretty physical, but I mean, more mental being down here in the cold.
Oh, it ain't too bad. You just gotta keep moving around and stuff. Hands start getting cold, it does get cold.
15 hours at minus 22 Fahrenheit. That's minus 32 degrees Celsius. Takes its toll.
Did you smash it?
No, it was just frostbite.
So you got away. And I gave you some.
I just don't like looking at it.
Yeah.
Like it goes away, then it comes back, turning purple again.
We've had some frostbite cases on here. We haven't had any lost toes or fingers over it, but it is a thing that we deal with out here on the cargo level, where it's 32 below zero down there.
The cargo crew can stand the cold knowing they're on the verge of completing their season. At midnight on day 19, Alaska Ocean sets its nets for what it hopes will be the last time. 100 tons of pollock is all that stands between the crew and a trip back to Dutch Harbor. At 3 a.m., Alaska Ocean makes its final haul, hitting its total of 22,000 tons.
We've had a good run of luck. Fishing's been good, production's been good. So we have to count our blessings. It's been pretty good for us all the way around.
It's a 2-day voyage back to port, and the crew's spirits are high.
Well, at least it'll make me look younger, huh?
At dawn on day 21 of their voyage, Alaska Ocean sails back into Dutch Harbor, a long summer season behind them. But just when it seems like the crew can relax, they've got one more chore to do when they arrive at the dock, and it might be the hardest job of all: offloading 2,500 tons of product in less than 36 hours, and nobody leaves till the job is done.
Our goal is to do the fastest turnaround we possibly can. Get in there and get this thing offloaded, and the end result is we're done with the season quicker, and we get to go home.
Using wireless remotes, the deckhands guide the precious cargo from the hold to the dock before it has a chance to thaw.
If we're running fast, we'll do 20 picks an hour. Yeah, you gotta be careful about a backswing so you don't dump the product or hurt somebody.
Down in the freezing cargo hold, shifting product and tons of freight flying overhead keep the crew on its toes to avoid injury. Everyone available pitches in to get product onto pallets, craned up, and lifted out. Longshoremen receive the pallets and move them into reefers or refrigerated containers. Alaska Ocean's 5 million pounds of processed fish are headed for dinner tables around the world.
Now it's time to clean the deck.
The crew of Alaska Ocean is also preparing to scatter to the 4 corners of the earth.
So we've been at it for a long time, so we're looking forward to a break and do what we like to do to relax.
I'm going to go to northern Wisconsin and work on my cabin.
Directly after we get off, I'm going to Mexico.
I'm ready to go home. Yep.
laughed. It was funny.
Going to Hawaii for a week with my wife.
I bought an older house on a lake, so it needs new floors, new everything.
Just to be able to watch sports, to go home and see the Mariners is what I'm really looking forward to.
Captain Scott, now free from the responsibilities of his crew's safety and meeting his season's quota, has his own idea of relaxation.
I'm gonna go fishing. Sport fishing, salmon in Puget Sound. It's a totally different thing. It's fun.
In 4 months, the ship will head back out on the Bering Sea for the grueling winter pollock season. Most of the fishermen aboard Alaska Ocean will be returning.